Hi, I'm Marina Webster, your host for Inspiring Author TV, the only show that inspires authors to write and gives you hints and tips on how to promote and market your books. And today we have a wonderful guest, Barbara Lipple. Welcome, Barbara. Barbara is a Western Australian poet, and she has a published poetry book. So, Barbara, can you tell us about your poetry book, how you published it, and what was your happy moments about your book, and maybe some disappointments you had with publishing this book?
Right. I published a book of poems and a CD as well, with some of my friends. A CD? With some of my friends and some musical interludes. When I first started writing was at high school, and my chief inspiration at high school was to keep my teacher happy.
Wow.
So I wrote the way he wanted me to write. But after that, I would write for special occasions. Someone had a 25th wedding anniversary when my singer friend was celebrating her 25 years of singing professionally. I wrote a special poem for her. And I wrote about the bushfires. When there were bushfires in Kings Park, I wrote about that. I wrote a special one when I was falling in love with my husband, and about family, and I wrote one on Mother's Day. I got very cross about Mother's Day, so I wrote about Mother's Day. And part of what I'm doing sometimes with writing is sorting out my thoughts. It's like thinking aloud on paper. I have a problem and I write it out. I don't write out all the pros and cons. I write out what's happening in my mind, and it helps me to clarify my thinking.
So the poetry just come to you, is it? You just, something comes, poetry words just come to you and you write them down. So you get some sort of inspiration.
Yes, Irina, sometimes. One day I wrote two in one day at Cottesloe Beach. I was sitting on the sand. It wasn't too hot, mind you. And I wrote two poems that day. Sometimes I write something and I have to work at it and change it a bit.
Yeah. So how did you publish it?
I self-published. I found a printer. A good friend of mine was self-publishing as well. She recommended the printer. Friends gave me some of the photos that are inside, and a wildlife photographer gave me the print of that.
Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah,
many people say they wish they love that, and I say yes. If I were selling posters, I would make $1 million, because everybody loves it.
Really Australian.
Yes, that's a Banksia flower, and a New Holland honey eater. Getting some food from there.
Yeah, wonderful. So Barbara, did you try conventional publisher? Or you just,
I did send my poems to various publishers. Yes, I went to Melbourne with some of my poems for a place that I thought would publish, but they declined. So
declined.
Yes.
Did they say anything why they declined?
Not really, no.
So you didn't have any response from them?
No, I didn't. In fact, no. They weren't doing that sort of thing anymore, I think. And I sent to another publisher in Melbourne, and they weren't interested either. But it's very rare to get even an acknowledgement
for poetry.
Yes.
At the moment. Yes, it's very difficult. Okay, so this was only one difficulty you had.
I was disappointed with the proofreading. I could have checked it better, and the white. There's a slogan: "Don't be afraid of the white." People like a lot of white around the poems, and there are some. It's rather crowded.
talking about?
Quite around, yes, and
Uh-huh.
spaces between the lines. And some of the poems are a bit crowded. They look a bit crowded.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was a bit of a disappointment.
So who did proofreading for you?
A friend.
Just a friend. Right.
Yes.
No, it is very
that's
very
another
typical,
thing.
yeah.
I didn't have an editor, so
Uh-huh.
it was all done by myself and friends.
Yeah, but I suppose proofreading of poetry, it's kind of very tricky, isn't it?
Well, there were things I missed as well.
Yeah.
And some I didn't even see for years. It's terrible.
Mhm.
I didn't notice for years.
Mm-hmm. So what was your happiest moment about publishing your poetry book?
It was the launch. It
Uh-huh.
was a party, and a lot of friends came. One friend bought 8 copies.
Wow.
She's the one
Wow.
whose wedding anniversary is in there. She bought 8
Yeah.
copies at once. It was
She's-
wonderful.
She's a very good friend.
Yes, and she helped me with the cover, and she's the
Uh-huh.
one who told me about the printer and so
Uh-huh.
on. So she was very helpful. And I have a letter there that I just came across. A lady in Victoria wrote and said how much she liked it, and could I send her 4 more copies for her friends who she knew would like it.
Wow.
So that was good.
Yeah. Did you try to get any publicity for your book?
Yes, I
From
did.
radio,
I did.
TV,
Yes, and then I'll talk
newspapers?
about promotion if that's all right.
Yeah.
The local newspaper, I paid for ads to go in there.
Mhm.
They were very good though. They came and took a photo and talked about the launch. They weren't at the launch, but they took a photo about the books hands on. The clues, one of the tips is to have your own books with you whenever you're out and you see
Mhm.
somebody and do you know I've got a book out, and you can
Yes.
show them. And mine was at Christmas. I had my books with me. It was released in it was launched in December, so I had my books with me. I was very keen, and I saw a friend in a department store in the book department. I said, "Are you looking for something for your wife?" Here, and he bought it under the nose practically of all book departments.
This is good present, especially together with CD.
Yes.
I think it's wonderful present for someone who appreciates poetry.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's really, really good present. Yeah.
And there are different voices on the CD,
Mhm.
not just mine. There are other voices as well.
Wonderful.
And my friend who's a singer has put part of one of the songs to music, and she sings it on
Wow. Yeah, that's great. So you have done any like public speaking or any events where you actually promote your book and CD?
there. No.
You haven't done yet?
No.
Right. Right. So what recommendation would you give to new authors, not authors, poets,
Right.
who loves to write poetry?
If they're sending them off to magazines, it's a very good idea to have a register of the poems that you've sent, the date you sent it, and of course when it's published you should make a note of that in the same register so that you know where your poems are and so on. There are some deadlines sometimes with magazines, or competitions, things like that. Keep a track of what's going on with competitions, and if you belong to FAW, Fellowship of Australian Writers, or Society of Women Writers, something like that. You get workshops and retreats, writing retreats, and advice from other people who are friendly.
So these organizations you find very useful, like the Society of Women Writers and the Fellowship of Australian Writers. You find them very useful.
Yes.
So you would recommend people to join these organizations for their benefit.
Yes, I would.
So what would you recommend to new poets to persevere and
Yes,
do that?
they need to have a very thick skin, a thick hide, because people will say there's no market for it. They will say they will be negative in many, many ways.
So you have to put up with rejection basically and have a thick skin
And
to
keep
cope
on
with
going,
it and
yes.
keep on going until
Yes.
happy moments come to you?
Yes. One of my university teachers, whom I hadn't been in contact for decades, I sent him the book, and he wrote back very with a lot of praise, and he enjoyed it, he said. And he said, I'm sure you've written more poems since then. I would like to see them.
Wow.
So that was very, very encouraging.
That's right. So you mentioned before, to me before the interview, that you are working on a new book.
Yes.
Is it? What is book? Tell about a new book.
Well, it will be poetry again. I have been accumulating poems about, well, one of them again is about a teacher, a teacher of art, and how she encouraged me with a certain painting, and so it's all about that painting. What other things?
So this basically new book will be all about the poetry about your teacher.
No, that's just one of the poems.
One of the poems.
Yes, that was one.
But
I've selected a random. Sorry,
right, but all the poetry will be just random topic, or they devoted to one sort of topic, or just all the different
themes.
Different
yes,
themes.
Yes. There's one I'm writing about a paper nautilus. That's the shell that you find at the beach sometimes, and it's very fragile, as I discovered, and it was a treasure for years and years, and then it broke. So I'm still working on that one.
You are a very brave woman, Barbara, because to persevere with this kind of topic like poetry in our particular market, when poetry rejected in a lot of cases, I think you have to have a lot of brave heart. Heart of the poet.
Thank you.
Will you agree with that?
Yes.
Barbara, where people can buy your book and CD if someone wants to buy?
They can buy it from me by emailing me.
Okay, and email address we will put on the bottom of our video. So if anyone wants to buy this wonderful CD and wonderful book with Barbara Lipple poetry, please contact Barbara and she will happily send them to you. Anywhere in Australia and overseas.